why he needs you to feel indebted, and how to break free. There's a kind of heaviness that creeps in when you start feeling like you owe someone not just a favor, but your whole life. And it doesn't start in some obvious, dramatic way. It builds quietly. He grabs the check before you can reach for it. He sends you money when you casually mention you're stressed. He makes a call, and suddenly a door opens for you. He steps in, fixes things, handles things, solves things. At first, it feels amazing. You feel chosen, protected, cared for in a way that feels almost rare. In the beginning, you probably tell your friends how lucky you are. He just takes care of everything. He always shows up. It feels steady, solid. Your nervous system relaxes because someone seems dependable, and that kind of consistency taps into something very deep in us. We're wired to bond with people who respond quickly and confidently to our needs. It feels safe, but then slowly something shifts. The giving doesn't feel light anymore. It feels recorded, like somewhere, even if you can't see it, there's a ledger being kept. And you start to realize you're not just receiving kindness. You're accumulating debt. Here's the part most people don't see at first. In relationships where narcissistic traits are present, generosity can be less about love and more about positioning. On the surface, it looks selfless, but underneath, it can be strategic. A lot of narcissistic behavior is built around maintaining a certain self-image, capable, superior, indispensable. Under that confidence is often a fragile sense of self that needs constant reinforcement. Psychologists call it narcissistic supply, the validation that keeps their identity feeling intact. So when he helps, rescues, provides, or solves, it's not only about supporting you, it's also about reinforcing a story. You need me, and if you need him, he feels powerful, secure, important. Indispensability becomes leverage. You probably don't notice the shift right away. It usually shows up during conflict. Maybe you bring up something small, a tone he used, a boundary you want to set, a moment you felt dismissed. And suddenly, instead of talking about that, you're hearing, "After everything I've done for you," or "You wouldn't even be where you are without me," or "I've sacrificed so much." And just like that, the original issue disappears. The conversation isn't about your feelings anymore. It's about your supposed ingratitude. This isn't random defensiveness. It's psychological repositioning. By bringing up his generosity, he shifts the dynamic. You're no longer equals working through something. You're the beneficiary, the one who owes, the one who should be thankful instead of critical. For him, this move protects against shame. When someone with strong narcissistic defenses is confronted, even gently, it can feel like a threat to their identity. Instead of sitting with that discomfort and thinking, "Maybe I messed up," they reach for evidence that they're good, generous, superior. The giving becomes proof of virtue. It shields them from looking at flaws. For you, though, it does something very different. It scrambles your emotional clarity. You start wondering if your needs are unreasonable, if you're being selfish, if bringing up issues is somehow morally wrong because he's done so much. Your body starts associating conflict with guilt. And over time, you adjust. You bring up less. You swallow more. The reason this works so well is because gratitude and obligation get tangled together. Gratitude is healthy. It builds connection. It feels warm, but obligation, especially when it's implied rather than freely chosen, slowly eats away at autonomy. We're wired to reciprocate kindness. That's basic human psychology. When someone does something for us, we naturally want to give back. That's how healthy relationships stay balanced. But when giving is exaggerated, dramatic, or constantly referenced later, it stops being generosity. It becomes currency, and you might find yourself overpaying. You tolerate behavior you wouldn't normally tolerate. You stretch yourself emotionally. You give more time, more energy, more forgiveness, trying to even the score. The problem is, the score never evens out, because it was never about balance. It was about hierarchy. If you look back, there's often an early red flag in how the generosity showed up. It might have been intense, big gestures very early, lavish gifts before real trust was built, over-the-top promises, offers to fix parts of your life that normally would take time to earn access to. That intensity feels romantic at first. It feels like fate. Psychologically, though, that speed matters. Fast bonding creates fast attachment. And when attachment forms before a solid foundation of mutual understanding and equality, it's harder to untangle later. For someone with narcissistic traits, rapid closeness secures supply. It locks in importance quickly. For you, it feels special. No one has ever shown up for me like this. That uniqueness deepens loyalty. Then months pass, and something subtle happens inside you. You hesitate before making decisions on your own. You wonder if declining something will seem ungrateful. You feel this quiet pull to consult him, not because you can't decide, but because acting independently feels almost disloyal. That's when indebtedness moves from something you feel occasionally to something that shapes your identity. Clinically, this starts resembling coercive control. Dependency gets cultivated slowly, not through force, but through favors. And the more dependent you feel, the less likely you are to push back. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for clear reasoning and independent decision-making, gets clouded by anxiety about disappointing him. You overthink. You second-guess. Your internal compass, which used to feel steady, grows quieter. And here's the most important part. None of this means you're weak. It means you're human. You responded to generosity the way humans are wired to respond. The problem was never that you appreciated him. The problem was that appreciation was quietly turned into obligation. Real love doesn't keep receipts. Real support doesn't get weaponized later. And the moment you start noticing that the help always comes back around during conflict, that's not ingratitude talking. That's awareness waking up. If you really step back and look at it from his side, your dependence feels like proof that he matters, proof that he's powerful. If you rely on him, if you check with him, if you feel like you can't quite function the same without him, it feeds something deep inside him. It soothes insecurities he probably doesn't even admit to himself. Your need becomes his reassurance. The hard part is this: real intimacy is built on equality. Two people standing next to each other, not one above the other. But equality requires vulnerability. It means he can't guarantee you'll always need him. And if you don't need him, then he can't control the story anymore. So the debt has to stay alive. The subtle reminders, the after everything I've done, the quiet pressure, because as long as you feel like you owe him, the balance of power stays tilted. You might start noticing something else too. When you succeed, somehow it circles back to him. You get a promotion, and he reminds you how he encouraged you. You become more confident, and he points out how he pushed you to grow. On the surface, it sounds supportive, but over time, it feels like your wins aren't fully yours. This is a kind of psychological claiming. By attaching himself to your progress, he stays at the center of the story. He's not just your partner. He's the architect, the reason, the catalyst. For him, that preserves his identity as the one who builds, shapes, elevates. For you, it slowly blurs your sense of ownership. You might even catch yourself thinking, could I have done this without him? That question alone tells you how deep the dynamic has gone. And then the changes inside you start showing up in small ways. You apologize faster. You shrink your needs before they even fully form. You excuse behavior that doesn't sit right because he's done so much for me. Your mind works overtime trying to reconcile two conflicting realities. He's generous, but I feel controlled. He helps me, but I feel small. That tension is cognitive dissonance. The brain hates holding two opposing truths at once, so it tries to smooth it out. The easiest way to reduce the discomfort is to reinterpret the control as care. He just loves deeply. He just wants what's best. But your body doesn't buy it. Your nervous system stays on edge. You find yourself scanning his mood, bracing for disappointment, worrying about letting him down. That's not gratitude. That's stress. And when that stress becomes chronic, hypervigilance starts to feel normal. Breaking out of this isn't just about realizing what's happening. You can understand it intellectually and still feel stuck. What really has to shift is your internal belief about what you owe people and what love actually means. The first step is learning to separate true generosity from transactional giving. Real generosity doesn't come back later as evidence in a courtroom. It doesn't get weaponized during arguments. It doesn't require compliance. Instead of focusing on isolated moments, look at patterns. When does his help get mentioned? Is it only during connection, or does it resurface during conflict? Writing things down can be surprisingly clarifying. When you see the repetition in black and white, it's harder to dismiss it as coincidence. Another huge piece is rebuilding independence wherever you can. Dependence feeds indebtedness. The more your life is structured around his support, financially, socially, emotionally, the harder it is to feel free. This doesn't mean rejecting help out of pride. It means making sure help doesn't quietly turn into ownership. Separate finances, if possible. Strengthen friendships outside the relationship. Reinvest in your own goals. The more solid your own foundation feels, the less leverage the debt has. Therapy can be incredibly helpful here, especially if trauma bonding or attachment wounds are involved. Sometimes indebtedness feels strangely familiar, even comforting. If you grew up equating love with sacrifice or obligation, this dynamic can feel like home. Exploring that gently, with support, helps untangle old wiring from present reality. And then there's the uncomfortable part, boundaries. The first time you say something like, "I appreciate what you've done, but that doesn't mean I owe you silence," it probably won't go smoothly. There may be guilt. There may be long speeches about sacrifice. He might list everything he's ever done in vivid detail. That reaction isn't random. The system is being challenged. When someone who relies on control feels it's slipping, they often escalate. Underneath that escalation is fear. Fear of losing significance, fear of losing power, fear of not being indispensable anymore. Seeing that clearly can help you not absorb the backlash as proof that you're wrong. It's not proof of your selfishness. It's proof that the old dynamic is shifting. Healing also means reminding yourself who you were before the debt narrative took over. Write down your achievements that had nothing to do with him. Think back to decisions you made on your own. Reach out to people who knew you when you weren't positioned as someone's beneficiary. Every time you reclaim a piece of your story, you strengthen your sense of agency. And the brain adapts. Repeated self-trust builds new pathways. Confidence isn't just emotional, it's neurological. There's grief in this process too. Let's be honest about that. Realizing that some of the generosity had strings attached can hurt deeply. It can feel like betrayal layered underneath kindness. You might mourn the version of the relationship you thought you had. That grief is normal, necessary. Even if you skip it, you risk clinging to the illusion. If you let yourself feel it, clarity comes back stronger. At the heart of all this, the dynamic isn't really about money or favors. It's about control dressed up as care. It's about insecurity trying to stabilize itself through hierarchy. It's about gratitude being twisted into a chain. Freedom doesn't require pretending he never helped you. It just requires redefining what help means. Help is support, freely given. It's not ownership. It's not leverage. It's not a lifetime contract. When that sinks in, really sinks in, something inside you loosens. The imaginary ledger fades. The constant calculating stops. The weight lightens. You were never meant to live as someone's permanent obligation. You were meant to stand next to someone, not under them. And the moment you stop confusing gratitude with debt, the grip weakens. He might still insist you owe him. He might repeat the story. But repetition doesn't make it truth. Your autonomy does. And once you fully step back into that autonomy, you don't ask for permission anymore.